everyone. Watch till the end of the video for a surprise. I'll see you there. Aswang, a life-changing experience. This story is about my grandmother. This happened several years before I was born, and I heard about this story while my mom and her sisters were bonding together, reminiscing about their childhood, particularly about my grandma. When my grandma was young, she was not as religious as she used to be before she died in 2002. They lived in a house near the National Railroad. My grandparents were not rich, but my grandfather was a well-known artist or painter in our hometown, and people usually ask him for a lot of artwork. My grandfather, however, was too kind-hearted to charge people with his work, especially when it was commissioned by his friends. So when he died, he left little money for his family. However, it was my grandfather's kind-heartedness that saved his family. All of his friends shouldered his funeral expenses, and some of them pledged to pay for my auntie's education expenses. Now, my grandmother, on the other hand, was loved by my grandfather very much. They got married at the age of 14 and 16 to save my grandmother from being taken by the Japanese Imperial Army during the Japanese occupation in the Philippines. She was spoiled and treated too indulgently. So when he died, my grandma became depressed. She started playing mahjong. It's a Chinese tile-based game. She did this with her friends and will stay up until the wee hours in the morning. According to my mother, as the eldest among 7 children, she took the responsibility of looking after her siblings. She would stay up late waiting for grandma. And my grandmother's gambling habit went from bad to worse, until one scary evening when she had the most frightful experience. While she was on her way home at 3 a.m. from a friend's house, my grandmother saw a huge black dog a few feet away from her. The dog was so huge, it was like 5 feet tall, and it was just standing in the middle of the road staring at her. My grandma was startled, as it was just so unusual to see a dog that big. What scared her was how the dog was acting so strange. It was doing nothing and just staring at her, and she could also hear a growl, like as if the dog is going to pounce at her. She started to walk fast, and her heart almost dropped when she had to walk past the dog, which was still staring at her. She kept on walking and was too scared to look back, and when she turned on the next corner, she continued walking until she saw something weird from a distance. There was this huge gray bird perched at the edge of a banana tree a few feet away. My grandmother stared intently at the large, powerful built bird as she continued to walk forward. Its eyes were bright red, and it was also staring back at her. The hair at the back of her neck started to raise as she realized that the bird was perched at the edge of a banana stalk, which was physically impossible. My grandmother realized that what she was looking at is not an ordinary bird, but an aswang, or a shapeshifter. The bird was too heavy for the banana stalk to sustain its weight, but it just stood there without the stalk breaking. Then, the bird made a sudden scary screeching sound that made my grandmother jump and run. And when she was a few feet away from the banana tree, she heard a sudden flapping of heavy wings from behind, and she knew right then that the bird was flying towards her. My grandmother in an instant stooped down to avoid the bird as it flew over her head, its talons grazing her hair. According to my mom, flying aswangs normally grab their victims on their legs. Then, they would lift them up in the air and throw them in the ground to incapacitate their victims. That is the time that they would devour their victims once they have been disabled. My grandmother started shouting for help as she ran as fast as she could. She knew that there was no way that she can outrun the Aswang, so she went inside a huge cement pipe at the side of the street as there was a government construction project being done in that area. My grandmother hid there, crying and praying for her life. She could still hear the flapping of wings outside circling the area. Fortunately for her, the neighbors heard her cry for help. Houses started to switch their lights on, and a few people went out to check what was going on outside. The Aswang left, and my grandmother crawled out of the cement pipe. From that day on, my grandma stopped gambling and has never stayed up late outside again. She became a devout Christian until the day she left us.
I have numerous experiences with ghosts or whatever they might be. But this one, I would never forget. It happened when I moved up to Columba from Paranormal due to my new job location. I rented a penthouse. It's on the rooftop of a 2-story building apartment. I'm living with my girlfriend, and in the first weeks, we began to experience strange things. At first we tried to hold these from each other, but then began to discuss them among ourselves. I told her at times I would hear a male voice whistling in a merry tone, or some people, a female, conversing in the middle of afternoons, which, to my surprise, she hears them too. She then told me she would catch at a time in the corner of her eyes a silhouette rushing through the door, which I also encounter. Her elder sister one time visited and stayed with us, and during the first day she said she sensed something in the house. But she told us that it was guarding the house, and we don't need to be afraid. She told us this, even though we hadn't told her any stories about it. Now, the worst one. We are now experiencing this scratching. Something like crawling or walking in our roof. At times we hear thuds. I already have hints that it's an Aswang. I was so angry at it that I would curse at it when we would hear the sounds. I got 2 handguns with me, a 38 and a 45, a samurai, and a number of knives which I collected. I would get out of the house armed and with a flashlight, and I'd throw stones on our roof, ready to shoot anything that comes off of it. It was one night, with Spitz, my dog, which I tied to the back door, was crying in the middle of the night, and I knew it was starting again. Slowly, with all the lights off, I approached the back door and heard only the sound that I cannot decide what kind or where it was coming from. It was somewhat afar. It says to me, it sounded like a bird or whatever, and it was scaring the hell out of my dog. I thought back to the stories I'd heard, that the Aswang sounds far away from you when it is actually near you. My dog was really scared now, with his body pressed against the back door crying. I was just waiting for the doorknob to turn, and I'm just waiting to blow this Aswang away if it intends to go through my back door. So I click on the hammer of my gun and got into a position. And suddenly, the sound stops. Probably heard the gun clicking, I guess. My eyes were all over the place, looking towards the window or anywhere. It was dark, and I don't know if he had already managed to slip inside of the house. I let out a curse to the Aswang, and here seconds later, there was nothing. Soon, I was back in the bed, and we heard rattling on our roof. And again, with my gun and a knife, my girlfriend along with me, we went out of the house. I'd say it was past 12 midnight maybe. We checked up on our roof. I told her to throw garlic salt in the roof and around the house, especially on the door's path. And after that, it all stopped for months. After a few months, we're sitting outside the house again, enjoying the moon that night, when she notices something flying. Something flapping its wings, and it points to me. To my surprise, I cannot make something of what I see. Brown in colour, maybe the size of a dog, some 100 meters away. My girlfriend and I just look at each other. We both agree it's no big bird or bat. It was flying slow, and I'm totally sure it's not an owl too. I've seen owls. They don't get that big, nor fly that way. Today, I sleep with my guns and knives beside me. I was told to wet the bullets with saliva, and to have them penetrate these beings the same way I did with my samurai and knives. Who knows? I may be the first one to kill some of these things, ghosts, or whatever they may be.
Baguio hauntings. Today is Tuesday, and I just got back from a 3 days and 2 nights stay in Baguio. I was there from Saturday until Monday afternoon and would just like to share a little story that happened in our staycation house. It was Saturday morning at around 2 a.m. when I and a girlfriend of mine decided to go to sleep after we had a couple of beers with our tourmate. We are, by the way, best buds, and we are joiners on the said Baguio trip that was set by one tour agency. She sleeps in the bed while I sleep on the mattress that is set at the floor beside her bed. Our tour guide at that time did warn us about eerie things that are to be expected at the Saint Transient house, since it really was a haunted place because it resides behind Our Lady of Lourdes grotto. She lies down on her bed while I lie down on the mattress and begin doing small talks until the time that we were bothered by the window because it kept on swaying close and open. At that time, we thought it was probably because of the strong wind. So what I did is close all the windows in the room and then went back to the mattress. However, These guys probably did not like what I did, since right after I closed the window, the dogs outside howled and howled again and again the entire night, to the point that the person next to our room decided to join us since she was all alone. We decided to pay no attention to the dogs and sleep as well. However, as my friend lay on her side, she immediately jumped out of her bed saying that someone or something touched her tummy at that time. And at this point, we were all awake already because of what happened. I decided to vape at the small balcony in our room. I saw someone or something standing outside looking at the transient house that we were residing. I called the two girls to confirm what I am seeing, and they said that they also see it. After that, we decided to go out of our room and went down to the living room, and to our surprise, the other couple that were also joiners on the said tour are also downstairs, since the same thing happened to the wife, wherein someone touched her belly as well when she was getting ready for bed. Now at this point, we decided to all gather up in the living room of this house and have some more beers until we all fell asleep. We took these happenings as a welcome greeting of the said entities of the house, as none of those occurrences happened on the second night.
Last December, my family and I went to our beach in Quezon province. Nothing scary happened on the first night, although I saw some elementals there in the area. But they weren't trying to harm us. They were just observing. On the second night, something strange happened. I thought this only happened in movies, but I thought wrong. My dad, mum, 3 younger brothers aged 21, 17 and 15, our maid and I, slept in our Bahay Kubo, Nipa hut, because our beach house is still under construction. It was around 1:30 in the morning, December 28th, when I heard gunshots. I was awoken by the sound, so I got up when I saw that my mum and dad weren't in their bed. And then my brother, 21, also woke up, because he told me he heard gunshots. So we decided to go and check it out, see what it was. When we got out, my brother and I saw my mum, dad, driver, and my dad's bodyguard looking at this huge coconut tree. I asked my mum what they were doing, and then my mum told me, "There's an Aswang, a ghoul." At first, I didn't want to believe it. But my dad, who is a skeptic also, told me that he saw it. It was a huge, black bird with super red eyes, like they were glowing red. My mum also told me that when we were all sleeping, she was awoken by the sound of flapping wings and the sound of it circled the Nipa hut twice, as if it was looking for a way in. My mum told me to wake up my brothers, who were still sleeping, and our Yaya, maid, so that we would all be together. My dad fired a shot again towards the tree, but the huge bird was still in hiding. My dad then told his bodyguard to turn off all the lights. The moon was shining so bright that night. Right after all the lights were turned off, the huge bird took flight and swooped down on us. I saw it too. It was huge, and it really did have red, glowing eyes. My dad, the driver, my brother, my dad's bodyguard ran after the huge bird. They tried to shoot at it again, but the bird perched on another coconut tree near us and hid again. After 10 minutes or so, and after 5 more gunshots, my dad finally hit it. The huge bird cried. I got so scared. It was the most spine-chilling cry I've ever heard. I wasn't sure if it was a cry for help or just because it got hurt. It flew away again. Then after a minute, we heard our neighbour's dogs howling like crazy animals. My dad and his bodyguard checked that area, and the ones who got left decided to patrol the area. When my dad and his aide reached the fence, they saw 2 birds crawling. Why would birds crawl? And when the birds saw them, those birds tried to attack them. My younger brother, 15, and me, we decided to patrol the back of the house and wait for my dad and his aide to get back. When we heard the flapping of wings again. So, I decided to turn on the flashlight I was carrying, and I shone it in the direction in which we heard the sound. There we saw it, fold its wings and look straight at us. I started cussing at it, and I also told it that we weren't scared of it. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. The roles were switched. They were the hunted, and we were the hunters. Sadly, they got away. But I'm ready for the next time. I'm not afraid of them anymore. I'm going back there next week. And this time, I also have a weapon with me. We'll see who's stronger. Us or them.
I'm not sure, but maybe it was an aswang. Most of the weird experiences I had were just stored in a rusty chest in my memory bank. It's because our father used to tell us that there is no such thing as paranormal. But Mom told me now that I am grown up that our father's third eye is actually open, and the reason it tells us not to believe in the paranormal things are for us not to pay much attention to it because he thought that it would scare us. So, growing up, I had witnessed odd things happening and didn't freak out because I was telling myself that there was nothing not normal about those things, but just coincidences. But coming across this site made me change my mind because I know now that from different parts of the world, people experience such things. I discovered that this site's community is no longer new to the story of Philippine school, or we call it Aswang. A few years back in 2006, I was living with my sister in an apartment here in Cebu. It was a 2-story apartment occupied by a family on the ground floor, us in one of the 2 rooms upstairs, and the other room was occupied by an old couple waiting for the construction of their house to be completed. Adjacent to the family unit is the landowner's unit, Actually, the apartment was not first class. The second floor was made of wood, and outside our rooms on the second floor was a hallway leading to a staircase. And again, everything was made of wood. I will never forget what happened this particular night. Our landlady was 5 months pregnant. Me and my sister were sleeping when I heard this growling. At first, it sounded like a cat in heat. I just ignored it because it was in the middle of the night and I was so sleepy. And I had school the next day too. I covered my ears with a pillow and then went back to sleep. After 15 minutes, I think, my sister woke me up asking me what the sound was, and I said probably a cat. She told me that she doesn't think so. I said, "It's just a cat." A few minutes later, she woke me up again and asked me to listen. We heard something scratching the hallway floor, and what scared me is that it did not sound like a cat scratch. They were loud scratches. I could compare it to bear scratch, which I've never heard of, but it was what I think a bear scratch would sound like. It sounded like long scratches but fast. I even thought that the scratches made a hole on the floor. Just then, I remembered our pregnant landlady. I told my sister to take a look at whatever it was through the slightly closed windows. At first, she hesitated, but then she agreed. I used the reason that she is older, so she should be the one doing it. She said that she saw red eyes and a silhouette of a big dog. Since both of us were afraid to go outside and face it, what I did is grab my baseball bat and smashed it on the wall directly beside the creature. We heard it jump away through our neighbors' roofs, and we did that to let the creature know that we were awake. I talked to my sister in a really loud voice, and then in a few moments went out the room to the hallway. I still had the bat with me just in case. I just wanted to scare it off, not face it. I'm a chicken too, you know. We checked the floor, but there were no signs of scratches, which was really weird. I would say it was not a dog, because we have a door and at the end of the hallway, and we lock it before sleeping. But it was an open hallway because it also served as our terrace. But it's not possible for one to be in the hallway if not through the door, which was locked. The following day, we told the landlord about it, and he said that they heard it. He added that they were scared because their bed was right below that hallway, and the scratching sounds on the floor coincides to the landlady's stomach's location below. I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Was it just a stray animal? Or is there an Aswang in the city?
It was summer of 2013. I was 17 years old at the time when I decided to visit my older sister Lauren in her boyfriend's house, where she lives together with his family. At the time, she was pregnant, and I decided to bring her some fruits and planned to stay there for a few days if they would allow. When I arrived at their humble home, her future parents-in-law welcomed me. They also offered me to stay for a few days. The two old folks are nice to me. I call them Uncle Teddy and Aunt Sella. They work in the farm every day together, and with my sister's boyfriend Dan also. My sister just stays in the house with Juliet, her future sister-in-law. She's also very nice to us. While eating some snacks, Lauren told me about a strange, huge black bird that was seen flying around their house a few nights ago. They believed it was a tik-tik, a bird that is used by an Aswang to spy for pregnant women. Lauren is so scared that the stories about Aswangs could be real. There were times during the night that they could hear the sounds of a bird, the flapping of its huge wings. They also hear footsteps in the roof. All that she does is pray and ask for protection. Dan is also ready to protect her with a machete, a jar of salt, and garlic kept in their room. My first and second night at their house was peaceful and silent. No signs of a tik-tik or a Aswang. On the third night, I was sleeping in bed when I was woken up by the screams of Lauren and Juliet. I checked the time on my phone, and it's around 12 o'clock. I can hear the strong blows of wind outside and the sound of flapping wings. I prayed for protection before I headed to my sister's room. Everybody is already awake. Lauren, Juliet, and Aunt Sella stick together inside the room praying. Dan was guarding them. Uncle Teddy was outside the room and shouting to the demon bird to leave. We're all at the second floor. Suddenly, the huge bird starts banging the window in Lauren's room. Good thing it has metal grills. Dan opened the window, and the huge black bird was revealed in front of us. We were all shocked at its glowing red eyes. I quickly grabbed the jar of salt and I threw some at it. "Stay away from us, demon! Leave!" I shouted. It got angry and irritated, so it flew around the house, maybe looking for an opening. As the huge black bird was circling around the old house, we suddenly hear footsteps on the roof. "It is here! The Aswang!" said Uncle Teddy. "Put salt and garlic on every window," he ordered. Then Uncle Teddy ran downstairs and outside to surround the house with salt while carrying his machete. After a few minutes, we heard Uncle Teddy shout for help. I quickly ran to him while leaving the ladies with Dan. When I got out, I was shocked to see Uncle Teddy losing a fight against a creature I've never seen before. A man with black skin, and his eyes are red in colour, with fangs in the upper and lower front teeth. He was totally naked, but he had some facial hairs. Uncle Teddy was badly beaten. I noticed that the Aswang was also wounded by Uncle's machete. With all my strength, I charged towards the Aswang, and I stabbed its left shoulder using a kitchen knife. He quickly grabbed me by the neck and threw me away. His strength was like equal to 3 adult males. He released an angry, loud cry before running towards the fields, and the huge black bird followed him. I helped the old man to stand up. He was wounded by the man's pointed nails. We did not sleep that night and waited until the sun came up. Dan immediately told the neighbours what had happened. Some even heard the shouting but they chose to stay inside their homes and ignore it. People say that the Aswang will swallow the black bird because it lives inside his stomach. Then the Aswang will return to his normal human form. But at night, when he releases the black bird to hunt for prey, the man will change to his Aswang demon form. I stayed with my sister for another 2 weeks, just to make sure that the Aswang didn't come back. Luckily, it did not return anymore. After 3 months, Lauren gave birth to a healthy baby boy.
Was it a ghost or a capre? After my last encounter at a subdivision, I never experienced anything again until 9 to 10 years later. I think I was in my sophomore or junior year in college. I have trouble recalling the exact year whenever I experience anything when I reach my teenage years, but I always remember the incident clearly. This time, I no longer live with my aunt in Angeles City, and they no longer live in the subdivision that I always mention in my previous stories. I was now staying at our house in the province with my uncle, grandmother, and siblings. We live in an isolated part of the province in Pangasinan, where the nearest grocery store was around 30 minutes away, and the nearest mall is an hour away depending on the traffic. The barangay or village that we live in is near a mountain and about 10 minutes or so away from the highway via tricycle. And before reaching the center part of the barangay, you'll mostly see rice fields rather than houses. Our house is in the middle part of the barangay. It faces the basketball court, while at the back you will have a view of the rice plants in the mountain. One night, while I was sleeping, I suddenly felt a huge hand touching my chest, shaking me like it was trying to wake me up in a hurried way. On the first few shakes, I wasn't able to open my eyes, like I was paralyzed or something. And when I was finally able to open my eyes, I abruptly sat up, and the feeling of someone touching and shaking me on the chest also disappeared at the same time that I opened my eyes. I looked around, wondering who would wake me up, but I saw that my sisters were all asleep. We all slept in the same room, and we have one foldable bed and a double-deck bed, and I slept on the upper deck. Judging by the size of the hand, I know that it was huge, like it belonged to a 6 to 7 foot tall person or thing. At first, I thought that it was just a simple nightmare, but I still feel the hand on my chest after a few minutes of waking up until I fell asleep again. If it wasn't a ghost, maybe it was a capre, as I have heard stories of a capre haunting some members of my family. We have a few mango trees around the house and a huge bamboo tree just beside our house lot, and our elders said that unseen creatures are living in them. My cousin's half-sister, who we don't talk to anymore, has experienced seeing a capre in that house before. It was my grandmother who told us this story. She said that Ate Vicky, which is not her real name, suddenly screamed after looking out the window at night. She said that she saw a pair of pitch-black legs outside the window. In Philippine folklore, a capre is said to be around 7 to 9 feet tall. I believe in ghosts as I experienced their hauntings firsthand, but I still have my doubts when it comes to mythical creatures, as I haven't experienced seeing or feeling them. The shaking that I felt isn't enough to make me believe that it was done by a capre, as I didn't see or feel anything unusual from my surroundings after waking up. However, I don't reject the thought that a lot of people in the Philippines have seen or felt the presence of these creatures. What do you guys think about the shaking that I experienced? That was the first and last, maybe, that I felt something while I was in the province. And here are the top comments for my last video. Welcome to Miss Creepy Tales Riddle Time. If you know the answer, feel free to leave it in the comments, and the winner gets to be featured in the next video. The beginning of eternity, the end of time and space, the beginning of every end, and the end of every place. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.